go. Well, excited for the season opener. It always comes up on you quick. You think it's a long ways away, and then lo and behold, it's upon you. I do think that compared to last year at this time, I mean, we're way ahead of where we were at last year. I mean, just from a program standpoint, offensively, defensively, depth. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is now when during the game and I'm looking down, I'm like, well, I need to sub that guy out for making a mistake. And you look down, there's nobody to sub him out. So, luckily now, I mean, we can hold guys accountable with the bench, which is ultimately the biggest way to hold guys accountable to doing the things that you want them to do. And so, I'm excited for that. And hopefully, I said we're going to be at close to full strength. Kenny's still he's still trying to come back from that high ankle sprain. Hopefully, he'll be back sooner than later. But other than that, we're healthy and looking forward to a good Detroit team, very dangerous Detroit team. I mean, Antoine Davis goes without saying, second leading returning scorer in the country, coach's son, can score in a variety of ways. Reminds me a lot of Andre Spite, who I coached at Northern Colorado, who during his time with me, the one season averaged about 25 a game and can just single-handedly go get 40 in a game. And that's with you guarding him well too. I mean, he's a tough shot maker, and he's also has the ability to put it on the bounce and make plays for his teammates. They don't have a lot of guys returning from last year. They have 3 guys, including 3 and then Davis, and then they added 5 Division I transfers and a couple of JUCO transfers. So it's kind of hard that first game where like us, I mean, they did two secret scrimmages, and so we really don't have much to go off of in terms of film, just based off of last year, which played a lot of zone late. We'll see. My guess is we'll see some man, see some zone, but we'll be prepared for whatever they decide to throw at us. And they're a team that I said they're very, very dangerous. And Coach Davis has been around a long time and have a lot of respect for what he's done along the way. And that it's not one of those openers where I could sit back and relax a little bit. And I mean, this is a good team coming in here, and excited to get challenged, because that's what for us in our preseason, our non-conference schedule. I mean, we got we're going to be tested early and often, and which I think in the long run is going to allow us to be that much better in the end. That being said, kick it off. Does that mean the hands? I mean,
just go ahead and ask, guys.
Yeah, I like the little just raise your hand as opposed to the raise hand emoji. Ryan.
Jeff, you one of your offseason focuses was obviously on the defensive end. You kind of touched on it, but is this like a pretty stiff test to see how far you've come in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, they were one of the better offensive teams in the country last year based off the numbers. And when you have a guy like Davis who can just single-handedly kind of go out and really control the game, I mean, it'll be a big test, because they do shoot the ball well. And then they got some guys that can drive it. So it's going to be a tall order early on, but that's also excited for the challenge. And I do think our habits on the defensive end have come a long ways. Just from the guys returning from last year, and then just kind of tweaking some things, and the practice time. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I mean, we just to be able to get the amount of reps in practice 5-on-5. I mean, it's 5,000 reps compared to 5 reps at this time last year. Cody.
Jeff, what's the number one thing you want to walk out of the AA with on Wednesday thinking about your team?
It's just gonna be fun to know, kind of see where we stand. I mean, that's, each game is a learning experience, and hopefully you can learn by winning. I mean, it's never fun learning by losing, but at the same time, I mean, I think where areas that we need to grow in, and I think that's the one big reason why we do those 2 scrimmages early on, is that playing against 2 quality opponents. It's a secret, but I'm sure you can figure out who we scrimmaged. That was good for us to really kind of see where we were at against, two good Division I teams. And, I think that based off of that, we'll be in a good place come Wednesday night, but it's also that first game, you just never know. And so hopefully we'll have a good crowd and guys will get their feet wet and take what the game brings. Cause that's, I said, we don't know exactly what we're going to see. I mean, we maybe have an idea of what we're going to see, but at the same time, we're pretty flexible. We got to adjust on the fly and just figure out a way to win the game. Jacob.
Good to see you, Coach. I appreciate you doing this. You talked about making sure you don't sit back and relax and take it easy. Have you sort of gave that message to your team? Because, Detroit's a team that thinks they can win the Horizon League this year and get into the NCAA tournament with some of their talent. So they're probably going to be coming ready to go, gunning in the AA. So have you sent that message to your team?
Well, yeah, I don't think we're in any position to think we can just show up and beat anybody. And so, and a team like Detroit, which, we have a lot of respect for. We've watched film, as a team and they know that, it's not one of those season openers where you're playing a non D1 and you can just show up and go win by 40 and make a bunch of threes. And really, I'm not sure what you get out of it other than the fact I do get a win on my record, but you are playing against a team that's very capable. When they walk in here, they're going to look like a legitimate Division I team and with their size and their length and their athleticism. And so it's a good challenge for us early. I don't know, maybe people won't recognize Detroit as, but Detroit is, I said, for people that know in college basketball, they're a very dangerous team and have a team that has a chance to create a lot of noise in the Horizon League this year. Go ahead there, Josh. Tracy, you'll be next.
Just, the last couple of weeks of the preseason, what's the thing that's impressed you the most about what you've seen from your team?
The biggest thing is just making sure we don't get hurt. that's probably the main thing in terms of practice and doing enough to where, we can continue to grow and get better, but then also making sure that we got all our guys available, because we had a stretch there, where we had, 4 or 5 guys out. And so with Kenny being the one guy out now, Thompson, he's returning for mono, which he might be the first person in the history of human civilization to get mono twice. But luckily he's back. He won't be necessarily in terms of 100% conditioning wise, but he's definitely back now. So he's had a really good summer and a really good fall. And it was unfortunate that, he had to come down with that. But I never thought, the one thing worse than getting COVID right now is if you got mono from an NCAA standpoint, because you're out for an automatic 21 days and you can't do anything. And so he's looked good the last few days in practice, but he definitely won't be at 100%. But other than that, I do think that, to have probably going into the game, 10 guys that I can sit there and really feel confident about putting on the floor. I couldn't say that last year at any point in time. Tracy.
I guess that might change my question a little bit, but I was wondering how often and how much of an impact do you think the potential of you having those 3 big men on the court at the same time, with Thompson outside the line, how much of an impact do you think that can have, and how much can you play those 3 guys together?
Who's the other? Graham, Thompson, and who's the third?
I was thinking of Ian.
Owen. Now, there will be at no point at any time this year will those 3 guys be on the floor. Now, we will be, with Graham, Thompson, who will definitely be playing some at the 4 and 5. I do know Thompson's a much better rebounder from the 4 spot, offensively and defensively, and he's also a guy that can really, he allows us to kind of, he's a bridge that allows us to kind of get us in our second, third actions. He really helps our offense flow. So in terms of those 3, they will never be on the floor together. Now, Thompson, Graham, and then J.O. at the 3 at times. That's a pretty big lineup right there. Graham at 6'10" and Thompson at 6'10" and J.O. at 6'9". And then now you have Maldonado, playing the point at 6'6", and, X at 6'4", and probably with his hair sometimes probably 6'9".
Okay, thank you.
Cody.
Really big question here, Jeff. Have you bought yourself a Ducell, EK, or Maldonado t-shirt?
You know what? My sons, they have all three. So, I encourage anybody to go to the Brown and Gold store and purchase your Graham EK, Xavier Ducell, and Hunter Maldonado t-shirts. So, if you see my boys at the game, they'll probably be wearing them.
Still kind of weird for you to see that guys can actually profit and have shirts like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole landscape is crazy, and and luckily for our guys, I mean, to have an opportunity to do that, that's a step in the right direction, because it's, as you're seeing in out there, and some of the things that are being reported, and a lot of the ones that are not being reported. I mean, it's just, the NIL stuff is crazy. I mean, it's not what it really was intended to be, and it's turned into more of recruiting inducements and just legalized cheating. It's what it's turned into, and so it's not gonna go away. It's not gonna change, and so I mean, that's where for us as a program, as an athletic department, you got to find ways to help compensate those guys, and hopefully help compensate your team. But it's one of those deals where you can sit there and complain about it, but if I want to sit here and complain about it, I'll probably be a high school coach here in a matter of years. And so you got to figure out a way to compete with the other teams in your league and around the country in order to be at this level. If not, then you might as well just go down to Division II. Jacob.
Going back to Hunter for a second, Coach. Last season, it was up and down. I'm not sure if he felt this way, but was he disappointed in the way he played last year? And what were your conversations with him in the offseason about improvements and maybe being more consistent and things like that?
And Hunter Thompson?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, it was hard last year for Hunter because, Graham didn't get cleared until the middle of January. And so, as I've always said, I mean, just because you're 6'10", that doesn't mean you're a post player. Thompson's more of a, he's more of a perimeter player in a lot of ways. And just like Nate Barnhart, my 7-footer, I mean, he's more of a perimeter player than he is a post player. And I do think that, at times defensively, I mean, it's a struggle for Thompson at the 5 against maybe some of the bigger guys. But he also creates a lot of matchup problems when he is at the 5 because his ability to shoot it and making us, pretty unorthodox that way. But, when you're a guy that's going to shoot threes, I mean, you're going to be up and down. And that's kind of, his deal is, he had those games like at Fresno where he makes 7 threes and he's the reason why you win the game. But at the same time, I'd probably rather just him be the guy that I know going in each game is going to make, 2 or 3 threes. And then if things are going well, he can go make 6 or 7 like he's proven before. And so he's a guy he's in the gym, a guy that probably in terms of me getting the job and coming here, I mean, he surprised me in terms of, what he does on his own in terms of putting in the time and effort to make improvements and trying to do what we do. And I do think that he's going to have a really good year this year just because he has the ability, I said, to play the 4 and the 5, where last year I didn't really have the ability. Did it a little bit at Utah State when we played them last year. But, with Graham, I mean, it was hard to kind of, it was with the number of bodies, it was hard to play him at both spots, but you will see him a lot more this year playing at the 4 than at the 5. Ryan.
Jeff, you said you have about 10 healthy players that you feel confident in. Is your plan during non-conference to have a deep rotation and see what everyone has, or does it just depend on how the games are going?
It depends on how the game's going. I mean, I'm not one that, my track record, I'm not one that likes to play a lot of guys. I mean, I'm really going to focus on 7, maybe 8. But, the thing too early on is that, the game is probably officiated a little bit tighter earlier in the season. And so depending on foul trouble, that could definitely adjust. But at least now when I do go to the bench, there's not going to be just a huge drop off. And so now that, that 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th guy, I mean, it's, those are guys that are capable of coming into a legitimate Division I game and contributing. Josh.
You mentioned the officiating. Have there been any rule changes or tweaks that you guys have maybe had to account for heading into the year?
I mean, not really. I mean, it's the same, really the same emphasis in terms of freedom of movement and just making sure guys understand, what that entails and means. And that's where for us to get those 2 scrimmages with, Division I officials, to be under that, because I could sit there and practice every day. We could sit there and blow the whistles coaches, and sometimes they think we're picking on them, but then they realize you get to the game, and then the beauty of the scrimmages is that you can, you don't foul out. I mean, that's, but in the real game, guess what? You only get 5 fouls, which, in college athletics and college basketball in particular, I mean, they want us to score more points, but then, they only allow us to have 5 fouls, which, if you don't have your best players on the floor, I mean, that's gonna hurt scoring, especially at, most levels of Division I basketball. And so, early on, you just got to make sure you got to manage it. And, but I'm sure it'll be 8, 9 guys probably, for the foreseeable future. Jacob.
Talk about the other Hunter. My 2-part question. One, what is one area that you have challenged him to get even better at? With him being so versatile, there's a lot of things he can do. What's one thing that you've told him that you want to see him get better at? And the second thing is, how scary is it for you that he's a senior and that he's going to be gone?
Well, I mean, in theory, he's a junior. I mean, he's a COVID junior. So, I mean, he's in his 5th year. So, I mean, he still has the option to come back, which, as me and him have had conversations behind the scenes, I mean, we'll address those things as they go. But the thing is that he's such, the ball's going to be in his hands so much more. I mean, it's a lot like what I did my last year at UNC, where I moved Radabaugh to the point, and Radabaugh had never played the point his first 3 years leading up to that. And then probably from a statistical standpoint, Radabaugh was probably the best, in terms of, efficiency and playing the pick and roll, was the best player in the country. And so I think, Maldo, being that, the ball is going to be in his hands a lot more. He's got really good vision. I mean, he can really pass the ball. I mean, he can make a lot of passes that, as I say, I mean, there's a reason why Kellen Moore's an offensive coordinator, not a quarterback in the NFL. It's not the fact that, Kellen, it's not because of his mind, as we've seen thus far until yesterday, but in terms of, if you can't throw the ball like Josh Allen into those little tight windows, it's hard to play at that level. And that goes to basketball. I mean, there's guys that, cross court passes that force rotations, that force long closeouts. A lot of guys throw, 80-mile-per-hour fastballs, and as Tracy, the Hall of Famer, knows, 80-mile-per-hour fastballs, unless you're maybe Greg Maddux and you can pinpoint, every single corner, that you have no chance of playing in the major leagues. And so Maldo has the ability to really manipulate defenses with that. My thing is with him is, being that he is about 30 years old, is that he has to play like he's old. When he tries to when he gets sped up is when his turnovers go up. And so for me, it's like, probably I need to show him film of Mark Jackson back in the day. And if you got to dribble down and, just play at your speed. If he plays at his speed, he should be one of the best guards in our league, but not, also one of the better guards in the country, not just from a statistical standpoint, but from on the defensive end as well. Tracy.
Kind of interesting to see him go from a guy that was really underneath the basket a lot of the time because of his strength to a guy that'll be on the outside more.
No, I mean, last year, I mean, we used him in a lot of different ways, and, he's so good with his back to the basket, but he's also such a good passer from down there. And so just put him in a lot of situations where, ultimately for us is, can we create paint touches? And, he was a big part until Graham got back last year, in terms of being able to create a paint touch, or to be able to force teams into rotations, because you got to try to double them. And so, I mean, I think that's the thing with us this year, when you have a guy like Graham on one side and you got Maldo on the other, even though Maldo's at the one, I mean, that doesn't mean we're going to use him in a lot of different ways. You're going to have to decide what you're going to do. If you can guard those guys one-on-one, well, I mean, you're going to have some challenges. Now, if you want to double, the beauty of both those guys, I mean, they're both really good passers. I mean, Graham has been doubled about 8 million times since the summer, since knowing that that's what he was going to probably see quite a bit. And so we put him in a lot of those situations to kind of clean some of those things up. And then Maldo just, he can really see it as well. And so you get those two guys down there, and you can put shooters around them, and it makes us pretty hard